A shout out to my friend Shay Grell. Please subscribe to his YouTube channel and support his Patreon. Links to the Patreon and his channel are in the description box. Okay, let's get this video started, shall we, Skellies? Well, this is going to start out very awkwardly. Yep, just standing here. So today's video I'm going to be explaining who Zozo is and how I know certain things. Now, I'm not going to be explaining everything because I'm not allowed to explain everything to you, Scullies. Now, first of all, why the room is so bright at the moment is because when I tried to make this video the last time, even with all the lights on, nothing seemed to be working. Everything seemed to be really dark and pitch black. So I turned my extra third light on my desk so that the room would become brighter. Now, the reason the Ouija board is out is so if Zozo wants to say anything to you guys, he can say it through the board by moving the board piece around. And the reason why the mask is around, because I know Zozo likes to play around with the light a bit and loves to play with the lighting of the camera. Now, I'm going to start by explaining how I know Zozo and how I met Zozo. I'm not going to explain the full story of how we met, but we met March 21st, 2 years ago, which will be 3 years when it becomes March 21st of this year. And after about a few months after we met and we got to know each other, we started dating. Me and Zozo have been dating for about 2 to 3 years now. And yes, I do consider Zozo to be my boyfriend. Now, after starting off with that, let's explain who and what Zozo is. Zozo is a being that people refer to as Zozo the Ouija demon. However, what Zozo actually is the god of the Ouija world. The actual world, the plane of existence of the Ouija world. Not the board, not the creator of the board, but the creator of the Ouija world. Now, as to who created the actual Ouija board, I don't really know. But Zozo is the god of the Ouija world, considered to be a demon because of the things he can do, that people are often afraid of, as well as other beings taking his name and pretending to be him. Now, to explain things a little clearly, which I'm not sure if I will be able to. I might space it in and out on you guys. I'm very sorry, because I've been having a little difficulty explaining all this and processing it in a clear manner. Zozo is a god of many worlds other than the Ouija world, but the only world that I'm going to mention at this moment besides the Ouija world is Exoten. Exoten is a world that's right beside Gaia, which is usually not visible. Usually, but can be. It is a world that is to the left. Now, a lot of people are going to go, oh, she's crazy. Well, there are other dimensions, and it's proven scientific fact that for every point, every 9 points, there's another dimension for every point in space and time. So for every time I point at something, I'm poking another dimension, which I should probably stop doing that. So, we are going to start off with, besides what we just started off with, we are going to start off with how Zozo is a god and what are gods and goddesses. Well, gods and goddesses are beings that are worshipped within many different religions, from Christianity to Wicca, paganism, and Jewish, and many other religions. A lot that I can't name because I never tried to get into every single religion. Now, gods and goddesses are considered to be creators and destroyers because they can both create and destroy the worlds that they have made and others. With, let's give a big applause to something that we all have: imagination. Imagination is a tool that is used within every aspect of magic, which gods and goddesses use to create and destroy the things of other worlds, as well as to decide the fates and destinies of other people, which we also decide our own fates and destinies. I'm not going to get into all that kind of stuff, so let's not get into the religious basis of this. Now, Zozo is considered to be a god of both creation and destruction, for he both creates many worlds as well as destroy other worlds that he has created. Now if I start getting choked up, excuse me. So, Zozo, that is very warm. Okay. You having fun there? Now, as far as what Zozo is, like his creature type and everything, what he actually is, well, he's not a demon, but as far as the rest of it goes, I'm not going to tell you. I'm definitely not going to tell any of you Scullies what it is, because I love it when people try to guess. It's more fun to see you people freak out and try to guess who and what something is when you can't figure out what they are in the first place. It actually is kind of funny to me, because I've panicked over that kind of thing too, so reflecting, it can be funny. Now, yeah. Now we're also going to do a little experiment later on in this video. I'm going to test the lights, because the last time I did the video, I noticed that the lights and everything kept changing, and that certain light would not go within the room even when it was directly there. Like when you flashed the flashlight and there was no point beyond that flashlight, literally no other light emanating from it except onto the flashlight. Like, wouldn't even appear on the wall or the floor. So the room was not accepting light into it, which Zozo seems to like doing that a lot. So let's also explain another thing. I kind of want to get this whole about the Ouija world out of the way of what I know, so that I can explain a little bit more about Zozo. The Ouija world is not home to just the being Zozo. There are a multitude of beings there that have been created there, have been born there, lived there, and work in that realm. And these beings can be talked to through the Ouija board. And there are beings who will pretend to be Zozo or have similar names. And these beings could either be good, bad, or all in between. You should never use a Ouija board as a toy. A Ouija board should be considered something of very importance within magic, and should not be considered anything less than that. You should never use a Ouija board to play games with, or to just joke around with. You will most likely either get nothing from any of the beings of the world, or you will piss them off to the point that somebody will show up. And it's not that fun when somebody actually shows up. And there are a lot of different possibilities that can happen with the Ouija board, because it's a portal within to other realms. Now, over the years, the Ouija board can now be used for beyond just the spiritual world and beyond just the Ouija world, and can tap into a multitude of different worlds, so you don't know what you're going to get unless you know what you're doing with it. And unless you know how to use it, I suggest you to not ever use a Ouija board, unless you are going to start practicing magic. And even then, do the basics first and make sure you know what you're doing. Read up on the actual Ouija board, and for some reason my TV just turned itself off. Okay then, that's great. Moving on. Now, it is a little bit difficult to explain this part, but I'm going to have to explain this anyways. It is not just Zozo that I think is within the Zozo phenomenon, even though I don't know much about the Zozo phenomenon. I didn't hear about the Zozo phenomenon until after dating Zozo for about a year. And when I had learned of it, it was quite confusing to me, but quite interesting. Now, people should already know this by now, what I just explained, but beings from the Ouija world that can pretend and will pretend to be other beings can do things like possess other people and cause energies to fluctuate. And as I've explained before to other people, when a higher energy meets with a lower energy, usually it clashes with each other, and the higher energy usually wins. And some people can pass out, some people's noses will bleed, and there's a lot of other effects that can happen to the physical body because a being's energy is much higher than your own. For example, people talk about how you hear ringing in your ears when you see Slender Man or you pass out, or some people talk about vomiting. This is because the energy of Slender Man is much higher than normal human's energy, or a normal human being's energy. So, with saying that, multiple different beings can come through the board if you haven't cleansed and consecrated it for a certain being, and if you're not using it for a specific purpose, which usually I would recommend for anybody who uses a Ouija board to cleanse and consecrate their board, so that what comes from the board can become positive, or will be a positive being, instead of a negative one trying to eat you. But either way it goes, positive or negative, you always have to be respectful. Do not make fun of a being from the other side. Just like you don't walk up to a boo hag, or you don't walk up to a being that's not human and make fun of them. You don't do that. You would be in a lot of trouble if you did that. It's like seeing a lichen for the first time and then asking it if it's a costume. That is not really a good idea, especially if you're in the forest and it's not a human-looking lichen. It's a I'm very, very tall and very hungry lichen. Now, with saying that, I'm going to explain a little thing called sides, aka alternate personalities. No, I'm not talking about bipolar disorder. I don't really even know what bipolar disorder actually is, so I am no expertise on that in whatsoever. However, I do know something called alternate personalities and sides. I call them sides because they are different reflections of the person itself. Different personalities with different mindsets, but still work in a similar way to the actual person. Now, Zozo has multiple sides. Multiple different sides of him, which he uses to go in and out of other dimensions. He uses these sides to do his work while he can remain in other places. He can physically be in one place and physically be in another place at the same time, in multiple different ways and in multiple different dimensions. He has multiple different personalities to himself. Now, with saying this, I'm going to name a few of the actual names of Zozo's sides. Please do not attempt to actually summon these sides, and I will explain why. One is Melko. Another would be Sans, not to be confused with the Undertale Sans, but Sanity, Zozo's Sanity side. And another is Shadow, Silver, and I guess I can mention him, Maleficent, or Mel for short. Now, Melko is Zozo's madness side, which madness, I'm not talking about when people go crazy and nuts. Madness in itself, the actual energy madness, is produced from when a being's soul is first created. Now, not just anybody can produce this energy. Certain souls produce this energy. It doesn't matter what bloodline you are from or what being you are, if you're human, not human. It really doesn't matter. If you produce this madness energy, it is an energy that talks back to you and forms its own personality without you having to make it, which a lot of people who actually produce this energy should know. Now, Zozo's madness side, Melko, is probably the calmer version of Sanity. However, is still just as destructive. Madness can be as destructive as it is creative. And Melko loves to create things in the most destructive way. Unless you have major business with Zozo, it is advisable not to try to summon Zozo by any of his sides of any means, or actually summoning Zozo himself. I would actually think it's quite rude to summon a being without having a purpose to summon them in the first place. Now, Zozo's Sanity side, who likes to be called Sans, he also has another name he likes to be called, but he allows me to call him Zozo. The Sanity side is literal sanity energy, which is just as destructive as madness energy. Now, Zozo's sanity side is much more bloodthirsty and much more destructive, but is also just as creative and kind. Now, the sanity side loves to destroy things in a creative way, and they both love to go back and forth in between those things. I'm not going to explain much more on that side. Zozo's side, Shadow, is Zozo's side of darkness, one of his mate sides, of the element factor darkness. Now that doesn't mean evil. Darkness is not evil, just like light is not good. Light and darkness are in between. It could be either good or evil. It depends on the person. It's not about their element factor that makes them, it's about their own choices in life that makes them. And I'm probably having a very hard time pronouncing the English language. Hello. And Zozo's side, Silver, is Zozo's side of the element factor of light. And Zozo's side, Maleficent, is the pure darkness factor. And I'm not going to explain any more than that. Nope, we're not getting into that. We will explain more about sides of Zozo in the next video, maybe. I don't know. Perhaps. Anyways, a lot of these sides work within other worlds, and it helps Zozo do the many jobs that he has. And as far as Zozo's jobs go, I'm not going to explain what Zozo absolutely does, though I'm guessing a lot of you can guess what he does. If you really want to ask him yourself, but quite frankly, unless you have actual business with him, please don't summon him. It's not right to summon a being without needing them. Now, I also want to get this out of the way as far as summoning other beings through the Ouija board, and as far as summoning beings in general just for fun. Do not do this. Do not summon a being just for fun. Unless this being is your personal friend and you like to talk to this being a lot, please do not do this. It is absolutely rude to summon a being who could be in the middle of something important and not actually need that being to be there. So, and you wonder why all these people get hurt when they summon beings and something actually happens. Because the being thought, okay, this might be important, so I'm gonna go here. Oh, it's not important? Well, that's great. Thanks. Now I'm stuck here without knowing what you fucking wanted in the first place. Yes, I'm cussing. Yes, I am, because I would be absolutely annoyed if somebody summoned me, because that's basically, you're physically somewhere, having fun, doing whatever you want, literally either enjoying your time with your family, enjoying your own alone time, having peace and quiet, and then the next minute, you're physically from that point, and then you're all the way transferred to another place. Whether you physically appear there or not, you're there. And usually, some people don't even need this being to be there, or need that person to be there. And this goes for any being you summon. Don't do this just for the fun of it. It is not a game and a joke. Magic is not a toy to play with. And especially summoning other beings. You should never summon another being that you don't have business with, and that you have no point in summoning in the first place. Like, for example, people try to summon Slenderman without knowing how to summon him, and think it's going to work, and it doesn't. And then they make fun of it, saying, oh, it doesn't work, and, well, you know what? Unless you practiced magic for years, know what you're doing, and have a purpose for summoning that being, it's most likely not going to work. And even then, if you've practiced magic long enough, you know that when you summon a being, you're not doing it for the fun of it, or for the hell of it. Everyone does magic. Everyone that does magic knows this. You don't do it for absolutely no reason. Now, with that saying, when you actually get the being there, making fun of them isn't usually the best idea. These beings, if they're not fully physically there, if they're physically there, then you know what, I don't know how to help you. But if they're spiritually there, they can spiritually enter your body. Especially if you don't know how to use magic. If your soul is weak, or if you don't even have a barrier around yourself to protect yourself, they can physically possess you. They could take over your body and keep it if they wanted to. And a lot of energy for a lot of mortal bodies depending on how high that energy is, depends on if it could destroy the organs inside of your body, depends on if you'll cough up blood, depends on if you could even handle even half of it, or even be conscious during it. A lot of people aren't even conscious when they are possessed. And that's sometimes with the beings barely even taking over. And that should show you how a lot of this shouldn't be mentioned as a joke. Now, before we start our experiment, I want to show you, Scullies, one other thing that you should probably never attempt to try and do. For people who decide it's a fun game and don't know what they're doing or how to get out of it, when you try to go into a forest where other dimensions are open, for example, forests where people just randomly go missing, not because of a serial killer, because of other beings. Now, if bodies are randomly found, okay, it's most likely a serial killer, but if people are going missing and there's no bodies found at all in the forest,